Hey, welcome back to JG3 Reviews. My name is James, and I do have a fountain pen and more to review today. The and more is because this is not your ordinary fountain pen. This is the PenBBS 469. It is an eyedropper pen, and it is an eyedropper pen with a party trick. It has two ink wells and two ends for writing, not necessarily two fountain pens. This pen is a rollerball at one end and a fountain pen at the other, but it could be a fountain pen at both ends. It's really all up to you. For a long time I thought, I don't think I need that. I like to pretend that I at least have some sort of a use case for a fountain pen. Obviously I have more fountain pens than use cases, so it is kind of pretending sometimes. But this one I held off until I saw this resin. This is called the Starry Night resin, and it's just absolutely really good looking resin for the pen. But I also realized I had never seen until recently anybody review the actual rollerball unit for this pen. It comes with a fine and a medium steel nib, and people were always using both ends as just different steel nibs, which has a use case, but I wanted to see how that rollerball worked, and so it just gave me an excuse. And I was really just, let's be honest, I was looking for an excuse. So let's dive into the PenBBS 469. We'll look at the design, we'll look at all three of the nibs and how they write, and then I'll tell you what I think about this pen overall. So stick with me and let's flip that camera and get into this pen. Okay, here we have the PenBBS box, which is a good, sturdy, nice box. I know that's not a big deal to everybody, but some people do like to know what it's like. And in this case, it actually matters because my box came in terrible condition, and it's not the fault of PenBBS. It is the fault of one of the postal services, and I would not speculate which one from China to the U.S. that may have been, because I don't have a clue where that damage occurred. But it looks like, and especially in the package that this box came in, it looks like a cart rolled over it at some point, but it protected the pen. So that's a good thing. That's really the purpose of the box more than anything else, isn't it? So when you open your box, you will find, of course, here is that extra nib. When you get it, you have the choice between, this is a medium number 6 nib, a fine number 6 nib, or a rollerball end. And those are what I have installed on the pen right now. You get the eyedropper because this is an eyedropper pen. True to PenBBS fashion most of the time, my last pen didn't have it. They did include little cat pictures, and they included two, which makes total sense because there's two writing ends of this pen. I have no idea if that's why, but they did. So the box did its job and sacrificed itself for the sake of my pen. This is, as I said, the Starry Night resin, and I really like it. I'm not sure if the lighting will do justice on camera, but it is a really nice resin with some chatoyancy and different shades of blue to blue black, and I just really like it, and it did help me make up my mind to get this pen. The Galaxy also looks really good, and they've got a nice green resin that's in stock right now. I don't know if this one's still in stock, but it is a two-ended eyedropper pen. So you have in the center the barrel of the pen, and you can see the ink in both ends, which is of course what you want in an eyedropper, so you can know how much you have left and all of that good stuff. But in this one it serves a double function. You also get to remember which color is in which end, and for me, since I know which color has what nib or rollerball, then I also know that, and I open the right end right away. It's a small thing, but it's handy. So on this end we have the rollerball, and I had this filled right now with Birmingham Pen Company's Petroleum ink, and it's a nice ink, and I have that in the rollerball. And you notice that the resin is also the grip section, and that's true at both ends, of course. And this is a number 6 steel PenBBS nib, and let's have a close-up. This is the fine, and it's a two-toned nib. Really nice with scrolling. The two-tone is done very well, and I've always been pleased with their nibs. So as you can see, really nicely done, and a smooth writer, as I'll show you in the test here in just a second. But very, very, very nicely done. Let me go ahead and let me flip that and show you close up, although I'm not sure there's as much exciting stuff to see in a rollerball. There you go. And I find that it writes okay as well. I'll cover that a little bit more in the writing test. Let me show you that medium nib as well. It has a different design. It is a simply steel nib, and I find that these are really nice medium nibs. This is what I have in my 308 with the Galaxy resin. Really like that pen, and it does come with O-rings, although it should have two. One of mine, it was already broken, so I need to find a backup O-ring, but very, very good nibs. Now, let's see how the pen writes. All right, let's take a look at how both ends of this pen write. Let's start with the fountain pen end. Now this is a blue ink, and I'm not even sure I remember what it is. I'll make a note if I can find out in editing, but this is, of course, the PenBBS. And this is the fine steel nib. It is a number 6. I love their nibs. I just have great experience. And this is blue, as you can see. I just don't know which blue it may or may not be. I just have no idea. Now, you're not going to get a lot of line variation out of this pen. It's not really meant for that. It's a good hard steel nib, but it is a great writer. I think it lays down a good amount of ink without being too overly wet. This is Rhodia paper, by the way. And it's a nice quiet writer. You get a little bit of audible feedback and just a little bit of feedback in the pen itself, but it is far from scratchy and is a nice smooth nib and a nice fine nib. It's closer to, as you can see here, closer to a European fine than, say, a Japanese fine, just to give you some idea. And it just writes very well. And so I really like it. It keeps up, no problems there. I haven't had any issues with burping. None. No hard starts, no dry outs. It has been a really reliable eyedropper pen, and that's cool to me because my first experiences with eyedroppers was not that great. Lots of burping and burping and blopping of ink and stuff like that. And this has been reliable. Very, very good. I've used it quite a bit, and I have had no issues whatsoever with it, whether that's the fountain pen that I'm using on that end or with the rollerball. So let's take a look at the rollerball end of this pen. So still a PenBBS. Now I do find that the rollerball actually writes fairly wet its own self, although that's kind of dry, isn't it? After I said that, but it is quite well saturated. But it's a thick rollerball line. Now I will tell you this, if you're using a similar ink to this, this is not coming through on Rhodia, but this particular ink, this is the Birmingham Pen Company Petroleum. I really like it, like the green, but it does sometimes get through some papers. So on cheap paper, it's definitely going to go through. This is obviously not all that crazy wet right now, but it can work its way through. You're not going to get line variation from a rollerball, but that gives you some idea of what's going on there. Thick line. I've had no issues with this in terms of reliability or anything like that. No dry outs. It works with this ink just fine, and so it gives you options. If you are carrying this pen, which of course it doesn't have a clip, so you're going to have to figure out how you're going to carry that. But if you're carrying this pen, then there are times where a fountain pen is not what you need. Of course, if you're writing on receipts, rollerballs smear on those too, so that's actually not a help. But there are times when you might need. For example, sometimes I do UIL judging, and we write in triplicate, and so I could use the rollerball. Probably wouldn't use that ink, but I can use the rollerball where a fountain pen is a little bit more difficult to do. So that's always handy that way, and just aside from whatever your use case may be. But you can also, of course, just switch that around and put in that medium nib, which I think I'm actually not going to do right now, just because of time and things on my end. But you can switch that medium nib out. It writes just as well as this, obviously, just as a medium, and very reliable, smooth, the whole bit. Really great pen. I've really enjoyed it, and again, it's one of those that has redeemed my view of eyedroppers. It is handy in that you can carry 2 inks at the same time if you only want to carry one pen, and it has been, for me, utterly reliable. And, I mean, look at that resin, and look at the clear acrylic and the ink and all of that. Man, that's just cool. I like that. So, an unusual pen, and not an unreasonably priced pen for the level of quality that you're getting. PenBBS does a great job. They do a great job with this pen, and once again, I found a pen that I like from them. Let me give you just a little bit of size comparison, because it is not just, your normal everyday pen, and you may be wondering, so is it bigger? And it kind of is, because this is a Jinhao 51A, which is not a small pen, standard size, classic sized fountain pen, and you notice that it kind of dwarfs that 51A. Let's see here. Here is a Diplomat Magnum. A lot of you have these, and again, it dwarfs that Magnum. So it's not a crazy big pen, but it is a nice thick pen. Some people like that. It is a bit longer. It will not post. You do need to know that. It's not a posting pen, because that would be a cap on a cap, and so you're not going to do that. You're going to need to keep up with your cap. But it is a nice sized pen to write with, very comfortable. Ergonomics are great. And then that is the 580 ALR, and you can see that it's still even bigger than that pen, and that's a good sized pen itself. So that gives you some idea of size. Do love the pen, as you can tell. I've had great experience with it. Share your experience. If you have this pen, share your experience, please, on the durability of that rollerball, and how do you clean that out. I have not cleaned mine out yet, and I wanted to before this review, but just haven't done it. So if you've got advice on that, I do appreciate that, and I'm sure somebody else here will too, because this is kind of a team effort. That's what I like about the comments. God bless you. Have a great week, and stay warm.